Hi, and good afternoon. My name is Michelle Bain, and I'm a lawyer, a social justice professional, and the founder and CEO of the Youth Advocacy Office. This message, this introductory video, is for you, Dr. Rachel Gilmore of Renegade Consulting. Dr. Gilmore, you and I met briefly at the most recent meeting I attended at the TMU campus, hosted by former provincial advocate for children and youth, Mr. Irwin Elman, and what a rock star of a person he is. I love when Irwin brings people together in a room. I always meet the best folks. I mentioned to a few folks in the room that day, and I believe I spoke with you as well, about the power of Section 19 conferences. And what feedback I got that day was the same feedback I usually get, which is why I'm writing to you now. Most people say, never heard of it. And that's really concerning. I focus primarily on young people who have had lived experience in the youth criminal justice or even the adult criminal justice system. I have a wealth of experience working for legal aid, and currently I do mental health patient representation. So I've added mental health representation and understanding to my portfolio, which I think was really critical at this time. However, what I want to focus on now is the creation of a culture of Section 19 conferences, and that's Section 19 of the Youth Criminal Justice Act, which of course is federal legislation, and to create a culture of these conferences, which, by the way, have been proven, documented, that they reduce recidivism rates, particularly in young people who have excessive trauma and have been exposed to a lot of challenges and are likely to reoffend. This process, which I have personally engaged in for years as a legal aid lawyer in the areas of Lindsay and Minden here in Ontario, are remarkably useful. I'm reaching out to you because I really love your website. I love everything you have to say, particularly about being Toronto-based but global in reach. I know that Canada can and should be setting the tone for youth justice through the Section 19 conferencing and all the amazing work we're already doing. In this introductory email, I've also included our organization's executive summary, our 12-week program overview, as well as the 2022 Department of Justice feasibility study for Section 19 conferences and why they're so great. This is not just another youth program. This is federal legislation that was drafted with this intended purpose and is grossly underutilized. I think at this time we know that we're filling an operational gap. We met with a number of federal members of parliament last year who were just phenomenal and loved the idea, but things were clearly shifting politically. And now we've got a new slate of MPs and some who are pre-existing where the policy is so aligned. We are so excited to talk to folks, for example, like Anna Gainey and the new Justice Parliamentary Secretaries who are focused on youth justice. They focus primarily on the policy side of things. Our work is definitely on the ground, building culture, building community infrastructure, and implementation models. The Section 19 conferences require local leadership. They require restorative training, practitioner engagement, and most important, in my professional opinion, is cross-sector collaboration. And all of which our organization is uniquely positioned to offer. We are the how and not just the what or the why. I've included some links to our existing website through Be Social Justice Professional Corporation, which is a compilation of years worth, millions of dollars of years worth of research of these issues at the provincial level in Ontario. So you have a sense of where we're headed and what we've been working on, and we're currently in the middle of a rebrand from Be Social Justice and from our existing national charity of youth empowering youth. We've added a nationally registered legal enterprise, which is the Youth Advocacy Office, which allows us to operate in each province and territory to specifically focus on increasing the access and use of Section 19 conferences. At this particular juncture, we believe we have the perfect policy window. When the political will, the public need, and the proposed solutions align, which is right now, the public actors are definitely in place, particularly federally. We also want to target the three provinces that were identified in the 2022 Department of Justice study, which were Manitoba, we've already reached out to, Premier Webb Canoe. We've also reached out to New Brunswick, as well as Alberta. However, Ontario, Manitoba, and New Brunswick were highlighted as the provinces that had the most to gain and the most challenges, as well as a budget that could potentially support the creation of a culture of Section 19 conferences in those provinces. Our goal, of course, is to be coast to coast to coast. Quebec and the Yukon are light years ahead of the game, whereas other provinces are just starting to catch up. Judges and justices of the peace are requesting this type of support, and we really want to be there to be that voice that supports them. We have public fatigue with the current punitive youth models. We've got a number of new parliamentary secretaries and a lot of new MPs who are focused on youth justice and youth justice reform. We have a disproportionate overrepresentation of young people who, through no fault of their own, are in the child welfare system, who then are almost funneled through a pipeline into the youth criminal justice system. And that's where the Section 19s really shine. Currently, I'm also working in patient representation mental health law, because I needed to round out my own professional experience to make sure I understood what was happening from a mental health perspective, particularly for young people involved in the child welfare and youth criminal justice systems. And the Section 19 conferences were built for this. We are the strategic glue. Our approach is definitely not in competition with the federal actors. We are complementary to what they are doing. There's a reason why when things went dark politically in Ontario back in 2018 when the Advocate Office was closed and we saw a lot of changes around the SIU, the police powers from the current provincial government, things seem to have softened a bit now. That in 2018, 2019, when Mr. Irwin Elman was unceremoniously let go from the Advocate Office, things were really tough. So we created a quasi-governmental NGO, which is part charity, part business, that will exist no matter who's in power. Luckily for us at the federal level, we've got a lot of traction right now, but we wanted to create an entity that could exist for potentially 25 consistent years, which is how long it takes to do consistent policy work. We really wanted to set down roots and build a solid foundation so that we could be there to support Section 19 conferences and other youth justice initiatives as we continue to progress and grow. We want to connect jurisdictions across provinces. It's important to note that the young people themselves who are in child welfare often bounce from province to province to province. They're crossing provincial lines, and some provinces have the resources and support, others don't. They could end up in a rural community or an urban one. It can be really disorienting for the young people. So the more consistency we have across the country, the better. We can also translate legal theory into accessible youth and community practices. We hold credibility with both the legal profession and the advocacy world. Finally, we can also provide vision, voice, and infrastructure for something that they're just now starting to conceptualize at the federal level. Thankfully, fortunately and unfortunately, no one else is quite doing this from our lens. The Department of Justice thankfully did a great feasibility study, as I've mentioned, and I've included that along with our executive summary, our 12-week program overview, and a few links to our existing sites and other information that we found relevant in the email that's also included with this intro video. In my opinion, this is legacy building work. I'd like to go back to the University of Toronto as a Master's of Law student to incorporate the education piece that is absolutely key to making sure that we have the intellectual and the research base that we need that to complement the practical legal experience of myself and, more importantly, other very experienced criminal defense lawyers and even family lawyers and other justice professionals who have so much to add to this conversation. We've reached out federally, we reached out provincially. We are continuing to do the work to build the legacy work with not only my personal testimony, but legal training, my national network, and the clarity we have, a vision of what it is that we're offering. Our work with the Youth Advocacy Office, this is not just a pitch. This is a national offering, and this makes sense. In short, this is blessed timing. We really am so glad I met you. The doors are open, the language has changed, and the portfolios align. Now is the time for our voice and our leadership to really be in the room and to make the noise that needs to be made in a positive way for a federal legislation that has been documented to reduce recidivism rates among young people, meaning less charges, less convictions, less incidences of crime in the first place. Canada should be leading that nationally and internationally because we can. And I know that there are a lot of hardworking people out there like Irwin, like yourself, like the whole room of folks who were there that day, who are pushing so hard for this. But when I asked around to say, have you heard of a Section 19 conference? Have you ever been a part of one? The unanimous response was, no, never done that. Even from the BC Advocate for Children and Youth, and I'm so glad that we were able to reach out to her and get that feedback. They're already starting to look into why they aren't using Section 19 conferences in British Columbia. So if you don't mind, just take a look through the information we sent, and it would be absolutely amazing to schedule a teleconference or video conference with you in the next coming days or weeks. I'm sure you're working around schedules of holidays and other things of that nature this summer, but we've got some time. We would love to connect with you. Thank you for your time, and have a great day. And again, this is Michelle Bain of the Youth Advocacy Office.